Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the wonderful people around the world who has joined us for the exciting discussion, the first installment of Future of World panel discussion series. Today's topic is to explore the world of marketing and media, how it has changed in this era of pandemic and uncertainty, and what is to come in the new normal. Before starting off, let me take this opportunity to thank INK Kochi Alumni Group. A special mention to Liz, Parvat, and Nidun for leading the show and putting all these panelists together. I would like to introduce myself to begin with. Zubin Kabir. After having had the pleasure of working with Tata's and Reliance, I have been the co-founder of a management consulting firm based out of Cochin, Art of Consulting. Moving on to the other panel. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ajay. Yes. Ajay, he's the digital expert of the group, currently working in the media powerhouse Manorama as their digital strategist. Very warm welcome to Ajay.
Yeah, thank you, Subin.
Next, I would like to introduce Sumitha. She's the CEO of Martech Agency's MediaBox office. She not only brings in 15 years of experience in creative and media industry, but also adds an international flavor to this panel. She's currently based out of Dubai. A warm welcome to you, Sumitha.
Thank you, Subin. Thank you. It's actually nice to see you all again. It's a privilege to be again in this platform. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll have a wonderful discussion. Next, I would like to introduce Umesh Krishna, an absolute rising star with hyperlocal unicorn Swiggy. Currently the director of brand marketing there, having previously worked with giants like Ola and Bajaj. A warm welcome to you, Umesh.
Thanks a lot for having me, Subin, and thanks a lot for the added adjectives. Looking forward to a great chat.
I think it doesn't do the justice to you, but you'll have to live with this.
That's very kind of you. Yeah.
So last but never the least, Vaibhav Sumani, the growth and innovation guru, who is currently the director of entertainment giant Viacom 18. I also have the pleasure of being his batchmate, and I'm delighted to meet you after all these years. Welcome, Vaibhav.
Hi, Zubin. It's an absolute pleasure to see you again. And this is a wonderful lineup. I never thought that it would be like this, but I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion, certainly.
Absolutely. So generally, before we move on to the discussion, I just want to give a brief to all the viewers out here. How is the structure of the discussion going to be? So we'll start by exploring what are the trends, what are the changes in consumer behavior, how the companies and the market is reacting to the new situation, whether it is pandemic as of right now or post-pandemic. Second of all, we would be moving towards certain use cases or certain experiences which our panelists have gone through during this time. What has worked for them, what has not worked for them, and what could work in the future. And finally, we would be discussing a less concrete but more subjective discussion of what is going to be way forward. What is it going to be 6 months, 18 months, even 5 years down the lane? I think Corona has changed all of us. So looking forward to what these experts have to say on each of these items. So let's start off with the trends or the consumer behavior pattern. I would like to start off with Ajay Antony. The first question would be directed to him. Ajay, everybody has been talking about digital media, digital being the forefront and traditional media getting out of topic. But we would like to know a little bit more on how much of digital has changed. I know it has been growing for quite some time, but I believe pandemic or the Corona has really accelerated the process. Could you just talk about what is the growth pattern? Where has it grown? What is the effect?
Yeah, sure, Subin. Happy to take the first question. When we look at how the shifts have happened from traditional to digital, I think we'll have to start from consumers as such. Consumers being you and me and all of us here and all of us who are watching. Like what has changed for us, right? So when WHO declared Corona to be a pandemic sometime in March, that was probably the first phase of it. Then we went through the lockdown period, which started sometime towards the end of March. So naturally, for a consumer, not for a typical consumer, but talking from my peers' point of view, what used to be luxuries like probably changing a one-year-old cell phone, or let's say blitzing through the online shopping stores, or figuring out and buying unwanted things just stop just like that. All those needs quickly shifted to basics and essentials, like say for example personal protective equipments like masks or hand sanitizers, groceries, then personal hygiene products, FMCG products. So the consumer itself has changed there, or rather is even changing now. So a lot of that shift from traditional to digital depends upon what the consumer needs now and what they're going with it. So I'd say all the businesses, including Manorama, is actually looking at how the consumer behavior is changing here. And the first phase saw all of us putting our spends on hold, that is in all mediums, and probably looking at spending where there is an impact that would happen. So the initial days, I think the traditional mediums like print, channels, radio, all had bare minimum ads. That is probably regulatory ads or COVID-related ads, or maybe some FMCG majors spending a bit here and there to see how their products will go along. Okay, and it has got basically to do with waiting and seeing how this happens. And later on, I would say that some of the industries, such as, for example, let's say real estate, I would say they have shifted all of their spends. Not that they were spending huge in traditional, in the pre-COVID times. They were actually very cautious in the pre-COVID times as well. But even that spend has shifted to digital, especially over Facebook and Instagram. They're looking at it as a network for sourcing fresh leads, which they think of converting into viable, sales closings in the future. Another one would be brick and mortar businesses like, let's say, a local business like the Metro Shoes. They had a physical store. They could not open the physical store. So they rapidly, went to the digital storefront, and they have this option of showing the catalogs of WhatsApp. They have this facility wherein you can try those shoes and maybe the bags or any other apparel that they have. They would showcase it on WhatsApp and they will bring it to your home. Probably you can try it out and then make the purchase. And then there are like if you look at automobile industry, I wouldn't say the automobile companies as such, but the dealers. Like say, for example, if you look at Hyundai, we have a dealer called Popular Hyundai, who were really skeptical about digital maybe a couple of years back. But now I can see their ads all over social. That is with the the offer that they have across all their car models. So this is how I'm seeing the shift in spends happening from traditional to digital. It is still happening, but that doesn't mean that we don't have ads in traditional anymore. If you look at the the print media, we've been having a flurry of ads in the last couple of days. So I would say that it is coming back, but in a rather slow manner. Over to you, Zubin.
All right. Absolutely. Ajay, that was a great insight. I'd like to post a very connected question to Vaibhav on this. We are talking about shifting pattern associated with consumer patterns and how companies are responding. But there is also a big shift in how video consumption is happening, from the traditional medium like television towards the OTT platforms and digital media as a whole. And you must be in the center of all this. So, what is your take on this?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is something which we are all already aware of and we all already know about. And I think this started a little bit before the COVID lockdown thing hit, and it was most of the last year when the new tariff order got released, and basically a message got passed to consumers that you need to pay for whatever you're going to watch. So they were in a way prepared to pay for these all kinds of things. And then, of course, the moment hit and all the content pipelines went dry. Was unlike US or UK. In India, general lead time for a TV series to go from floor to the TV show itself is around 3 to 7 days, but in US and UK it is around 1 month. So they have a longer pipeline of content available, and India's pipeline went drier quickly, and then there was no content available online, no content available online as such in form of TV. So definitely people moved to subscription based platform like Netflix and Amazon. And one of the examples that I remember during that time, my parents, who were always very much averse to, in fact, explore their smart TV, which they were owning for last 1 or 2 years. And they suddenly made a shift to this entire SWOT platform within a span of, say, 2 days. And within 2 weeks, in fact, they were going and recommending me that these are the kind of shows you should watch. And they were saying that you are in the safe space. Why don't you go and talk to YouTube that we cannot resume our content when we are watching it on TV? So it is like an entirely different kind of shift that has happened, even for people who are not, who are like from a generation where we do not expect them to adopt technology so easily. So that is certainly a very, very grand shift happened. And this shift is not only impacting the video advertising industry or the video content creation industry, but the print and all these industries also are getting impacted. And one of the examples that comes to my mind is probably New York Times, whose digital revenue surpassed their paper copy revenue very recently, about 2 weeks back. And that clearly tells that probably what demonetization did to the digital payments ecosystem in India, probably that is what lockdown is doing to the OTT adoption in India. So yes, that is what we are excited about to see what happens.
So both the old and the young, both of them are together enjoying and cherishing this. I still remember a few years back, my son taught me certain YouTube functions which I didn't know existed, like voice search.
Yeah.
And now I believe my parents are teaching me too.
Yeah, I think our generation is going to be in the learning phase for a very long time. So
So absolutely, it's a big change which is happening. So now my next question is going to be directed towards Umesh. For the past few years, Swiggy and Zomato has been somewhat the big evil person coming in and disrupting the restaurant business. But with pandemic, suddenly you have become the angel. A lot of restaurants which would have gone out of business is now coming and saying thank you. So how has things changed? What is your take on that?
Interesting introduction to the topic, Suvin. So to give you a little bit of a perspective, the out-of-home delivery category grows up at about 15-20% year on year, and the food delivery, that's done online, almost doubles every year. So what it has actually done over the past few years is really help a few businesses grow and potentially cater to the demand that consumers are placing in, right? And something wonderful to see was these small businesses were always agile, right? Around 80% of them understand this and react to this quickly, and always were adapting for the online world. But there's always this share of people who would come in with the share of skepticism, right? And especially when you don't adopt or adapt your methodology well enough, you may struggle to track the market. So it was an interesting time. Once COVID set in, now these are businesses which are either offline or omni-channel, right? What it really kind of like put them on a spot is, made them they had to completely rewire their operations for to match the channels on which there was actual consumer demand. Now there's no more dining. People don't come in and always do those takeaways. Now that means that for any restaurant, it became an online first model, right? So something that we saw and we really found, I personally have a lot of appreciation is for the way they have rewired their businesses quickly to cater on the operation side to make it friendly for an online menu. So the menu is different, the merchandising is different. And I think a lot of changes have happened over there. And very happy that we helped some of these businesses kind of sustain through this phase, right? It's a very working capital heavy industry, a labor heavy industry. And it's one of those industries where your marketing has to kind of like do a demand and supply matching, almost slot to slot on a day-to-day basis, right? Therefore, it's so key that you manage the supply side and the demand side, setting the right expectations from consumers, matching their expectations, delivering on them, etc. So I think maybe over a period of a few weeks itself, there has been great amount of adoption, and that's what has happened largely on the business front. The second side of things is, of course, the grocery business, which is, it's technically much more of an essential than food in the Indian market, right? Because we all have kitchens. So for us, grocery becomes the prime mover for certain cities or with certain audience spaces. And that's where also a lot of things have changed. And we've been able to kind of support that business transformation over there as well. So when we look back, that was likely the demand shaping or the strategy shaping at the business side. Now on the consumer end, it's one of those categories which literally tracks the market sentiment day to day. You have a lockdown setting in, you may see the essential orders go up. You may have, a scenario where people are worried about the risk of infection. It directly affects the business, right? And the way people shop, the way people dress has a lot to do with, rather than just marketing, it has a lot to do with what's the assurance you provide, what's the trust you provide. So we have also seen those market sentiments reflect a lot on our business. But interestingly, now the times have kind of stabilized. All the things look good for the business as of now.
Umesh, I have a very controversial question to ask.
Sure.
It's like a lot of businesses have suffered in pandemic, but I think organization like Swiggy has actually benefited from it, because an organization like Swiggy and Uber is basically you're changing the pattern of consumers. So you require a lot of upfront acquisition cost. You have to go entice the customer and then convince him to use your service. But pandemic, on the other hand, has just forced his hand. Look, you better use my solution because that is the only option. And I believe that has worked out in your favor. Is it true?
Start with, still the customer is the king, right? And I think we will have it stamped on our front offices as well, like, because whatever is the scenario, there are still an X number of factors that go into driving the consumer behavior, right? For example, when the COVID set in, it's not necessary that our business shot up, right? Unlike a lot of foreign economies, Indians have a very different eating out habit, a very different dining out habit, right? And for them, fundamentally, food is very different. Food is almost faith. There's your mother's food and that roots. And this is just a substitute for a huge share of consumers, right? So when the pandemic set in, there are a lot of things that we had to rewire. And yeah, we had to not only think of just consumers, we had to think a lot about our delivery partners. We had to think a lot about our restaurants. So first things that we did was to ensure that we reach out to the delivery partners and ensure that you put in all the insurance and all the medical health and double down on it to take care of them in a scenario like this, and understand the best practices and kind of like disperse them within their fleet. Then, of course, with the restaurateurs, there's a bunch of things that we have done to kind of like help them through this. And then we go to the consumer with that assurance saying, hey, please do trust us. And this is how, we've rewired our business for you, right? So you may have read it's out in public that the business did considerably shrink. Grocery may have gone, but food delivery did shrink. So from an overall P&L point of view or a business top line point of view, is that great? Not necessarily, but businesses like us do not look at revenues and cash flows in a short term. We always look at, hey, how do we come in and genuinely add value to consumers, right? And that's where they will help you evolve as a business and kind of continue your innovation. We're a 5-year-old company potentially looking at, aging in dog years, and we are looking for that rapid change. Now, this is an enabler, probably a stumbling block, but I think hopefully it will become a long-term enabler for the category.
I totally believe 5 years of today is 50 years of a few decades back. It's traveling in light speed.
Yeah, like Ashwin Damodaran is I think one of the greatest proponents of that idea that these firms age really quickly.
Yeah. So moving on to Sumitha for the final set of questions in this session. Sumitha, as a consultant, I have been advising a lot of my clients to say that, listen, revenue streams are shrinking. Let's not put a lot of marketing budget on awareness or engagement. We better put as much money as possible on conversion. I want sales. Is this trend actually across, or is it just me just saying that to my clients?
So, Subin, now I understand for majority of the client consultants like you are giving this idea to them and making our life challenging. So, yeah, exactly. So, I think we have reached a halfway point. On one hand, the route or path we have traveled. Now, coming up is something what is unknown. So, almost it's a labyrinth for many of the creative agencies. But of course, it's motivating because it gives a feel of solving new challenges every day. As you said, first of all, many of the brands or clients, unlike pre-COVID, who want to launch, are in a confused and more of information-loaded phase. And of course, this personal perceptions makes convincing them from agency side a tough task, because almost all of them are aware about have got some time. Have personal friends or advisors giving them pieces. So first part is to convince them on performance marketing. First part, that is the challenging part. And then since now we had a paradigm shift from a creative branding agency to a MarTech agency. So we are giving so many MarTech solutions to many of our existing clients, as there is no point in starting a conversation on conventional media and ask them to spend, since like consultants like you are there. So I have to be always aware. Now, so, and before we are all used to a pattern of a launch of a new product where there is a time frame of branding and then awareness comes in. But now with the digital space, all want results that do immediately. For example, we had one of our consumer in India itself, not here in Dubai, who want to launch a product in retail. So they were, and of course, all the media plans were revolving around print. Of course, Ajay, Manorama had a big budget for that. Print was there. I'm sure Manorama salespeople might call my counterpart there. So every media plan was around print, hoardings, and of course, TV was also been in consideration. But pandemic hit, they changed their decision and completely shifted to e-commerce. So the retail part has been closed. I mean, now, so the main reason this was, of course, there was so many logistic issues to reach out to the suppliers, distributors, and supply chain issues. And much more was, most importantly, they knew that creating brand awareness will take time. Instead, it was directly on social media, InstaShop, Amazon Launchpad, where all communication strategy was, for e-commerce. And this now it got launched. The sales is slowly picking up, and the best part is that they are getting inquiries across globe instead of confining themselves in Indian market. Initially, their thought was to do only in Indian market. Of course, they had to think about the distribution, online distribution, but it was a learning for us also. Immediately, our entire team had to equip for that. Suddenly, we had to outsource people. We had to take some talent on board. Everything was happening during that pandemic time. So all people want more of a conversion phase rather than branding or awareness.
All right. One more small question to Sumitha on this. Something interesting is happening, because I believe it's a short-term trend rather than a long-term trend. But cost cutting, the first cost cutting is going towards marketing department. And a lot of clients are technically outsourcing the marketing, at least in the short term, to agencies or freelancers. Is this something which you are seeing as a trend?
Of course. And one more thing, let it be a long term, not a short term. We are benefiting. Out of my experience, period of corona or confinement, to be very honest, I had some time to think through organization. As we learned design thinking, I had a time to apply design thinking. I would say investing in people as well as in a process. And mentally, I made myself equipped to get transformed into a market company rather than a creative agency. And maybe before pandemic, I would have never thought of taking a hardcore IT person into my creative team. Now I really find it has been the right decision after a few pitch to the clients. So we could upsell ourselves, by identifying the latent pain of SMEs. So, and when I say taking an IT person doesn't mean we are selling IT products. Instead, it's all about translating the marketing technology into business effectiveness. So we ourselves got equipped with many of marketing tools, maybe like so many tools which Ajay maybe Video Leap, Crazy Egg, or GrowBridge, BitSwitch, Drift, AdRoll, etc. So functioning as an outsourced marketing department, and before COVID itself, in India, we have integrated another wing of Media Box Office where there was CFO on call. So I was a little used to that pattern of business, that model of business, but that was only in India, and that was not so. Hence, it was not new to me. The advantage for client here in Dubai is that it is more cost effective. Quite simple, because instead of one or two highly paid marketing people, they are outsourcing every work from designing, from strategy, from implementation, social media, everything to an agency. And so we collaborated with some of the emerging or unestablished influencers and content creators to strategically distribute the content to the right audience and achieve measurable results. So in that way, clients are happy. But it is really, it was a tedious effort for us also, considering with all the challenges where we are not able to go and meet the client during the lockdown period, and then remodeling or rephrasing ourselves into a market outsourced agency for a entire business unit. So the main challenge in that is, since if it is an SME and the owner is going to take the decision, and that the graph is always like this for the decision of the owner. So as an agency, we always have to, maybe it is like a 24 hours work now. That's what's happening.
Absolutely. So we are moving on to the next session. We are going to basically discuss on use cases, what has worked, what has not worked. I'd like to start this whole discussion starting with Viber, because there is absolutely an interesting trend. I mean, this is a lockdown period. Content creation, original content creation is absolutely a hell. How do you even create content at this time? What's happening in the content world? How are people coping up? I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I think once, as I mentioned in my earlier response, also the content pipeline had dried up, and we were literally struggling for almost a month or so, or at least quarter of the month. That how do we go about creating something? And we knew when we saw that coming already that this is something which is going to come. But as you always say, that God comes and help you in different ways. Ramayana came to our rescue actually, and what Ramayana it was released on Doordarshan, but it really showed a path to the entire mythology genre, that there is a lot of success, or there is a lot of takers for the mythology genre itself. And then soon after Ramayana, they launched Mahabharata and all, and which basically changed the trajectory for the mythology genre on other channels also. Soon Star, Colors, Z, Sony, everyone started launching their own set of mythology, even mythological versions of the Ramayana, Love Kush Ke Siya Ram, and all those things they started launching. And those were the kind of things that changed the mythology genre, and we started seeing some viewership and people liking it. But at the same time, other genres were still struggling. Very interesting thing that happened for another one such genre is reality, right? And because I'm from a house of reality, we are known for all the reality shows. MTV Roadies was one of the flagship shows that we have in the entire year, and we were struggling for how do we go about conducting the auditions for such a show. And this time there was no choice left, but we had to conduct it online. But the online audition was an instant hit. I remember, in fact, within the launch of those auditions, in 2-3 weeks, in Deccan Herald, it got covered. When Nikhil Chinnappa himself mentioned that he was himself very excited to look forward to such kind of things. And this opens up a lot of possibilities, you know. So content creation will definitely change because of this. But during this time, those all things were getting explored in many ways. So yeah, I think there were genres who were making sure that things are happening. There were certainly few who were not doing good. So that's what it is right now.
A slight point associated with this is the rise of the ability for low cost content to see traction. Is that true? I mean, before, if you are looking for a budget production, or if you're looking for a niche audience, it's very difficult to distribute the whole content. But with OTT, it's a different ballgame, is it?
Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right in that sense, because OTTs are now more open to just acquiring the content in any of the ways that they can get it, right? All the like there were a lot of big budget movies only which were going on screen, right? And then this low budget movies, when they hit, these low budget movies were either lot of times they were either arm twisted by the theater owners or the distribution network itself, and it was very difficult for them to see the light of the day. But with OTTs coming into picture and they opening their gates for such producers or small production houses, low budget films are coming on OTT, and I'm pretty sure every one of us has seen a lot of low budget movies and TV series also coming on OTT. So certainly this is something which is going to be a norm now going forward.
Great, Vaibhav. So moving on to another interesting and again controversial topic. This is again directed to Miss Sumitha. She loves to answer controversial topics. So, so with the COVID situation, I've seen a lot of ads coming in, which is very connected to COVID. Whether some of these ads have very relevant connect to the COVID and pandemic situations, but a lot of them seem to be very forced. Actually, there was a comment in the comment section exploring the same thing. The send your reply ad, which was basically, is it a form of consumer engagement, or is it fear mongering and compulsion? There are certain ads which are very relevant. There is no questions about it. But in that case, in certain cases, there is a question whether you're just making the customers fear unnecessarily, or you are adding the COVID property to something which doesn't exist. What is your take on it? You would have had a lot of inquiries related to creating ads of that sort, positive as well as negative.
Yeah, since Subin already has given me a clue, or given me a clue on what to be controversial. Do you want me to lose my client, Subin? So, yes, of course, there are positive as well as negative. Negative, I know negative is to be talked out first, right? So there are some clients who really wanted everything, any days. For example, we have some package of social media where monthly this number of creatives will be given to the client. So whatever may be the day, Manorama or Eid or Independence Day or anything, Book Lovers Day, whatever may be, any day should be connected with COVID. And the funny part is that they will forward us some WhatsApp messages where there is a content which has been asked to us, modify this and give it in how you can convert into COVID awareness or things like that. So at some point of time, my graphic designers are now good in creating this stickers, and they create the stickers and send it to me with some troll or some meme or things. So that's actually that makes our office little live. It's all we cannot. It's really hard to convince the client that no, sir, this is not applicable to you because this is something different. Your brand positioning, your strategy, everything is different. So how are we going to do this? And there is some cases where the entrepreneur himself will go online and talk about it. So there have been some points where we have to be silent. But of course, there are some positive campaigns. Now, here in Dubai, I think many of you might have noticed that an effective campaign is that hashtag mass shot. Is the first global social media campaign of its kind, launched in UAE in collaboration with internationally acclaimed comedian Kevin Hart to empower people to accomplish their dreams. So what is that? That we should adore. Actually, I respect that feeling, because by June, July, and all it was all negative feeling. We were all in despair. There was no hope. But hashtag mass shot was a campaign which instilled a lot of positivity and hope to the people living in Dubai. So what they did was they invited entries asking people to reflect their own dream directly to their life and personal experiences. So we were all surprised why they are doing it in July, in the month of July, when all sort of apprehensions were in the air. So they did it to instill positivity and hope. And Kevin Hart, with all his motivational activities which he was doing around, very well loomed with UAE's motto of impossible is possible. And there was never better time to convey this message. And all this happened in a very short span of time. I think it is almost 3 weeks, and they used almost 100% of Insta, mainly on Insta stories they were posting, and they target. I think they have not targeted much on FB, and they had a minimal traction in FB, but they had around, I think, 45K followers in Insta. So as so there are some positive campaigns connecting with, not connecting directly with COVID, but they are taking that emotion of despair, don't go down, we are there, something like instilling hope, we have time to dream again. Those campaigns, those brands are really in our mind.
Oh, great. I think there is definitely a possibility of Ajay adding a few more stories to this. He's working in Manorama, so he should be aware of that. So Ajay, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, while Sumitha was talking about this campaign that was launched in Dubai, I could only think of our own Break the Chain campaign. Something the government of Kerala launched sometime in towards the beginning of May, sometime at the end of April. I mean, then it has been all about evolutions of that same message, like break the chain with social distancing, break the chain with use of hand sanitizer, break the chain by making use of mask. I mean, as and when WHO or when our own health services come up with new statistics on how we can keep the virus at bay, then it would be, interestingly translated to simple messages, mostly by cartoons and social media posts, wherein each and every one of us can easily understand and relate to. I think that Break the Chain campaign is still going on uh, pretty well, and I am looking forward to a time when we have a vaccine around and probably that part of taking the vaccine can also become a part of that Break the Chain campaign. In fact, it is only this one particular campaign which has been adopted across almost all business houses in Kerala, including Malayalam Manorama. I mean, we have Break the Chain posters. We would have hand sanitizer dispensing station which has Break the Chain on it. It has been Break the Chain everywhere. So this is something that I wanted to add just when I heard Sumitha speaking.
What about Vibe and OTT platform? Is there something interesting from your point?
Not from OTT point of view, but one of the campaigns that I recall is the most recent Amazon India campaign, right? Their tagline itself was always "Apni Dukaan," and now they have changed it to "Nai Shuruaaton ki Apni Dukaan." So definitely hope and all these things are coming into the play. And when Sumitha was talking about the entire narration there, I was almost thinking like. Maybe COVID and the hope coming out of that, after the unlock situation, is it like emerging as a new genre in itself or something like that? So that is certainly Nai Shuruaat, I guess.
But one person who is absolutely at the center of this would be Umesh from Swiggy, because Swiggy was one of the companies which was actually affected by this whole pandemic issue, especially in the supply chain. So you guys have absolutely done a wonderful job in convincing customers that it is safe. How did you go about that? I would love to hear more about that.
Sure. So I think a lot of base is being said by the rest of the panel. So research says that when companies restart their marketing post COVID, it's not necessary that the messaging is all about COVID. It should have a certain amount of context, but the more you preserve the tonality of the brand, the kind of creative devices it has used, the best is the creative recall and its effectiveness. So something that, by that logic, we would, basically what we would like to do is continue on a lot of other conversations we would have had with our consumers, build them on it, but bring in the COVID context into it. And operationally or production wise, this strategy is not that easy. So For instance, in the month of March, we had about 200 creatives live across our performance marketing channels and category marketing channels. Now, think of this. All of a sudden, in the COVID coming in, you can't no longer talk about, hey, party with your friends anymore, right? All of a sudden, you have to kind of go either put a pause to these campaigns and then kind of like quickly rework your marketing creatives for this. So one of them that we kind of like really worked hard on was on the marketing tech part. It connects a lot back to how what Sumitha was talking about, etc. Bringing in tech to enable that personalization, that quick adapts of these creatives so that they are relevant when they go back live. One. The second issue that we faced is we are a firm who does a lot of television commercials, which means the production scenario is very similar to what Vaibhav spoke about, right? If you go to Mumbai, any ad shoot would literally have 100+ people. I'm talking about a short 20-second ad and maybe 3 or 4 variants of it. That storyboard, to execute it, we would literally have 100 people working on it on ground. A very, very human resource heavy activity. Production was really, really hit in the advertising world. When COVID came in, your permissions took a long time. Bringing in cast became so difficult. Recently, I shot an ad where the director and a good share of the creative team was actually sitting in Bangalore, where the shoot happened in Mumbai, right? And the entire production is being streamed, and the director is literally conversing with the actor through, the Zoom link. Now, imagine a scenario like this. I mean, I would have never thought this would be possible, right? Every single production, we would make sure we would travel, and the client and the creative are there at the scene of content creation. So, and when we actually saw the output, it looks nearly the same. So, both in terms of strategy as well as execution, it's somewhere a scenario we've been forced to rethink and forced to rethink through our marketing tech, our the specific skills the team members have, how the agencies, how the production house and the brands work together. Phenomenal change. Yeah. So when you can take over.
I just saw who was the person who was talking about the Century Ply ad. It was none other than Professor Om Kumar. I think we are absolutely honored that he's spending considerable time listening to us. Sir, if you're listening, we are absolutely thrilled and amazed that you are able to join us during this panel discussion. Thank you, sir. So let's move on to the final session of this whole discussion. It's about the way forward. So what's going to happen? What does the crystal ball talk about? So let's start this whole thing with one of another comment which I got, which I was also planning to ask about. This is again going to be directed to start with to Vaibhav. There is this big battle between publishing houses and OTT platforms. Who is going to release the big budget movies? Some of the movies have already been released to OTT platforms, bypassing the theater, and there is a mega war going on. Some of the actors are supposed to get boycotted. The famous South Indian actor Surya's issue comes in because his wife's Jyotika's movie got released in the platform, and now people are saying that they will not take any of his movies in theaters. So there is going to be a lot of dirty war going on between this whole process. And I believe it is Shrishti Garg who posed this question related to the big budget movies like Suryavanshi. So what is your take on it? Where is the battle being drawn and who is going to win it?
So very interesting question, and certainly very pertinent. Lot of big budget movies got released on OTT during the lockdown itself. And what happened is for a very long time, as I mentioned in the earlier response also, that the distribution network itself were arm twisting the production houses and all a lot, right? And then OTT came to a rescue. There were formation of companies like Applause. So if you have seen a lot of web series, companies like Applause are the ones who are basically producing most of this web series. And Applause is a very interesting model. They don't really want you to make the entire web series or entire movie and come to them. You can just go to them with a script, and then if they like the script, they'll put in the money. They become a kind of a co-producer with you, and then of course they'll pitch it to the higher this thing. And Applause is again formed by Nikhil Advani and all, who were already big veterans in this entire production industry and all. So certainly this movie is getting released over OTT and then simultaneously making a theatrical debut is going to be a norm. I think next 6 months definitely we'll see more of movies coming on OTT. But when theater reopen, theater has its own charm. So both the things will start coexisting, I believe. It is not going to be a kind of a thing where people can resist from staying on OTT or maybe just only on the theater medium itself or the cinema theaters itself. And with Netflix and Amazon Prime exerting so much, pulling so many strings and having so many users on their platform, you don't know, they might start owning one of the PVRs and they would say that if you have a subscription, come and watch the movie in our theater and start giving them a theater experience. So there can be a absolute possibility of a lot of disruption happening. But to answer that, I think it would be for each of the movies to decide how the release is going to happen. And in all possibilities, I think the win-win situation would be for both for the movies to be released on both the platforms together.
Great, Vaibhav. So next question is going to be directed to Umesh. I have a question along with a comment which I've seen. So both I'll club it together. We have been talking quite a lot about analytics, automation, technologies, data management. I believe Swiggy is one of the companies who have actually cracked it rather than just use keywords. So how has it happened? How is it working? Because an associated question with this is, we have been talking about performance over branding, and Swiggy is about in the center of it with IPL. So a lot of viewers want to know, IPL is all about branding. Where is the performance coming in? So how is Swiggy taking all this together?
God, wonderful question. I think starting first with the overall marketing strategy, I think the rewiring of that was kind of driven by the large shift in consumer behavior, right? So one, yes, we always had a huge amount of first-party data. I don't know if there are many apps which have this amount of active user base, transacting user base month on month. So we did sit on a wonderful deck of data, which is purchase behavior based or navigation based. Now, when something like a COVID sets in, not all those strategies extend seamlessly, right? You would have users who were very high in terms of transaction before, but the fear or the paranoia could cause some of them to cut down on their spending or may completely exit the category, right? There could be people who were previously inactive, but now have new needs and they may come back to the platform. So for us, our first party data, if we were to solely work entirely on that, it may not result in the best message for the best audience. So something that we work really hard on is our data management piece, bringing in second party, third party information so that we can personalize the communication better, understand, segment, and layer the communication to the customer in a much more sorted out manner. And the marketing technology also has to play a very, very key role here. Because one, I think we are kind of like overburdened with all the semiotics around safety. I mean, literally any advertiser is having that temperature check, shot in their video. And it's not good to kind of like discuss too much on that with the consumer, right? Especially in food category. You discuss too much and then even the ones who are kind of confident about the category would start wondering, hey, is there something wrong, right? So in terms of how much to communicate and what is the tonality, what is the level of assurance that you can give. We had to play very safe. And I think having a good data-led marketing stack kind of like helped us on that front. We did rewire some of those elements to kind of make all of this work better. That was one. Second, on the brand versus performance part. So I'm just going to like go with the conventional wisdom of saying, hey, brand is your top of the funnel and performance is more conversion oriented. For our category, the fact that there's so much of transacting user base means that the conversion path also is not necessarily a funnel. It's a little zigzag. People sometimes you may not have to even do brand marketing. They may act based on what's available in the app. Therefore, we generally look at it, let brand do a lot of hard lifting at a thematic level. So for example, if it's a safety concern, what is it that mentality shift that you need from the consumer to kind of get into ordering? That becomes more of the thematic leg that brand marketing would pick up. Whereas conversion would look at more specific tasks that would drive an immediate conversion. It could be understanding the occasion in which people actually make an order. Therefore, your transaction-led ads could push that occasion to consumers, right? That's how we have kind of like let these two parts play a different role in the environment right now. And IPL, obviously, right, a wonderful opportunity to brand. Something that has also happened is we did have a certain plan in the March version of the IPL. Obviously, it got shelved, and that meant when we even had to like go back and redraft our strategy, we had to start totally ground up. And potentially, it may not have anything to do with how we approach the IPL in 2018 or 2019. There's fundamentally so many changes. But if you look at IPL as a property, just to give a quick recall, even last year, for example, we used to have thematic campaigns live, but we also had a order now button right there on the Hotstar feed, right? It was called Swiggy Pop Menu, and one could order from there, right? So in any IPL is such an opportunity that you can, it's very, very good on branding, but there's a lot of opportunity to drive performance. It may not happen in the conventional way where the channel kind of like optimizes or there are multiple channels working together, but it has its own hacks to kind of like make it work to a conversion objective led channel. There are ways we can do it.
So I just came to know that the IPL question was posted by one of our batchmates.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's an ex-Hotstar, so we can truly understand his curiosity. I would still like to get a small view from the OTT part, because OTT is going to be the future driver of performance marketing. So what is your take on it, Vaibhav?
Yeah, so I think in the digital world, as Umesh rightly mentioned, performance marketing has taken over branding, and mostly the display ads, everything is basically running on performance when it comes to display ads and all. Right. In OTT world, where it comes to video advertising and all, performance marketing is yet to pick up that steam. And certainly Hotstar is one of the platforms where performance marketing is, they have been putting it up in a very large scale. But because of this lockdown situation and everybody worried about trying to get the worth of every penny they are spending during this time, performance marketing is one of the results that has come out of that. All the OTTs have to basically create a performance marketing channel for themselves, and they have no choice now. They have to become a performance marketing expert. Otherwise, advertisers and valuable advertisers like Umesh will move to other platforms, and there won't be Umesh, Ajay, everyone, and there won't be any thing for them to show. So there is no choice. Performance marketing will see an acceleration, definitely.
Great. So I'm moving on to the next question. This is going to be directed towards Ajay. So Ajay, see, I've seen a lot of new age events popping up. The rise of virtual events, whether it is product launches, conferences, exhibitions. I mean, from my personal experience, I believe that we have not reached a stage where it is very successful. Manorama, I believe, has been in the forefront of some of these initiatives. What is your take on the whole concept of virtual events per se?
Yeah, talking about the virtual events, like Manorama used to have, still has physical events, especially in the case of education. And with the whole COVID situation happening, we couldn't really have it, this year. So what we tried is that we tried to shift it to the virtual front by partnering with one of the service providers. And what happened is, with really good campaigns in digital and also in print, we were able to bring in a ton of registrations. That means it's a huge database. But unfortunately, what happened is that during the time of the event, the actual expo happening, we didn't have a lot of turn-ups. People who are actually, making that effort of logging in, going into the virtual fair and attending the booths. Initially, it didn't happen. Then gradually, we could see that people were actually, warming up to it to see how it would be like. So I'd say that even though platforms and even though providers like us are ready to put events in virtual format, I think a large chunk of consumers or potential participants are not yet ready, to go on it completely. So I think it will still remain to be an add-on. Like when you have a physical event happening, maybe after the COVID time, uh, probably virtual events would be like an add-on. If you can't make it to the physical event, say, hey, you can always log in and see what's happening. So that's my take on it.
Ajay, I think I would like to personally add a part to this. I believe that in two aspects, virtual events have been slightly drawn back. One, I don't think so. The technology as a whole has evolved enough. Uh, if the concept of augmented reality and virtual reality at some point reaches a good point, I think this is going to turn out to be something which no physical event can actually do. Uh, so it's not possible, say just a house expo. It's not possible for people to visit 10 or 15 or 20 different flats. But just
Yeah.
imagine the concept of virtual reality enabling that.
Yeah.
Or when you look at it, also one of the mistakes I believe people are making in virtual events is we are doing the same mistake of offline to online. That is, I have a set pattern offline. Let me just
Yeah.
put that online. That is never going to work because online has its own features and behaviors. I think
Yeah.
if somebody cracks that, a virtual event will be not just complementary, it will be something completely different and
Yeah.
it will have its own space.
Yeah.
At least that is what my take is on.
Mm.
Uh, this is added question to Ajay.
Yeah.
You are with a player with one of the giants whose chunk of revenue is coming from traditional medium.
Yeah.
What is the future? I mean, digital is going left, right, and center. And one of the comments, which the questions which has popped up by Gregory Syriac is,
Yeah.
where is it? Where is this chunk? Which one is going really down, and which one is like, okay, I will survive, and which one is like, yes, I'm going over the roof.
Okay. What I can say clearly is that that huge chunk of spend has shrunk. It's like this much. What used to be this much is only this much, and from that chunk, like people are trying out new things, especially in social media, to try and figure out whether they can, reach their target audience and whether they can get the kind of sales response that they used to get from print. But the thing with print and Kerala is that, say, for example, Manorama has a readership of, say, 1.77 crores, which is like more than half of Kerala's population. So I don't think it will be easy for any business, to reach that kind of audience that effectively in digital, like what Manorama does. But then again, there has been experiments by brick and mortar businesses to see how well they can do this. They are still doing it, but I think it will be more of a balance, with print, digital, TV, and radio all working together in an integrated manner. At least for the near future, I don't see that huge chunk of advertising spend shifting to digital as such just yet.
So, Umesh, what about you? How has been the Swiggy journey in terms of marketing divisions?
Uh, sure. So I think a lot of it is similar to what Ajay said. Obviously, it shrunk, the budget shrunk. And when you look at marketing budgeting also, you're not necessarily planning for 6 months, 12 months, etc. Right? You're kind of like experimenting and learning, figuring what is the way ahead. So it's going a little bit month on month, but definitely something we see is recovery, right? One. On the second piece is also about how do you manage the channel mix. So, for example, there were a lot of trends that were happening in India anyway. For example, the shift from big screen to small screen. Now, even within big screen, the connected TV universe became really, really big, right, over the past 1 year or so. And potentially, therefore, is it big screen? Do you treat it like TV? Do you treat it like digital? So, a lot of those channels kind of have this the behavior which is sort of omni-channel, right? And the second piece is also still the consumer. Now, in terms of content viewing habits, they switch very easily. For example, how Excel Survivor game, right? People, if I don't get my favorite content in one channel, I will definitely go in and look at the next channel for content, even if that means shifting to a digital OTT, right, from TV or something of that sort. But that doesn't necessarily hold true for advertising. So, for example, we have tried a few initiatives where we are trying to marry, let's say, AR into print. For example, it's your print ad, but you kind of enter an AR experience through after you scan it, right? What we have seen is it's only a thin share of consumers who still kind of like react to advertising the same way they react to content. So the number of people who may actually enter that experience or go through that experience is very, very thin. So a lot of those mergers, which we would have ideally wanted to see from an advertiser's perspective, has not happened yet. Maybe we need to have the tech coming together and a little bit from the consumer side, intent and behavior to kind of make that possible. But yeah, something that we do see is digital gets the advantage of measurability. So in a time when you are replanning your budget or scaling up, that one particular factor gives it an added edge because there is at least a good degree of prediction in terms of how the performance could pan out. And indirectly, that leads to more performance-heavy marketing, the same point that we kind of, where we started off. Sure.
Great. Actually, a wonderful question has again popped up from Professor Om Kumar. So, what's the whole trend between paid and earned advertising in media? I mean, the influencer marketing, the virality aspect of it. We'll start off with Sumitha. Sumitha, what is your take on is earned marketing going to be something which is pretty strong, or is it in a very flimsy state?
As with some of the clients, what I have understood is that basically paid, above all, paid earned followers and earned engagement is, of course, the best. There is no doubt about it. And now, recently, I have noticed digital media consumers are more skeptical towards paid partnership of influencers' content, because once they were the beacon of authenticity, competence, relevance, but then over time, now they themselves are becoming a mass media type of content.
The beacon holders of earned has become paid.
Exactly. So, and now, moreover, what I understood is that the mesh is widened and allowing a bit of everything to pass. People are aware of this and become more attentive, especially with respect to the relevance and quality of what they want to convey. So, and one more thing is really tough is that it is hard way that the consumers of digital space are hiding from brands, platforms, and even from their own larger communities. So it is all, a majority of them are in their private space, and to intrude into that private space, it's not at all easy. So, brands face this challenge of being more discreet or reserved. So, I have asked my copywriters or my designers to take that concept of selling from their mindset and just think on what value are they going to add through the content. Other than that, just if you are, I don't want to see your sales ad. That is a consumer mentality. That's what I have been seeing with, especially with some FEC clients which I was handling, family entertainment center here in UAE. So they are very reserved and they want to know how, they don't want us to sell the products which we have, this facility, that facility, no. So it is really tough for us to find that niche segment or niche communication strategy on how to convert or how to engage them. And one more thing I have understood is that, I don't know, many of you may differ with this opinion. Brevity is no longer the key to success. I know that especially the Generation Z with the attention span of a goldfish, in certain time, I have found that communication with some complexity gets response and which stays for long and creates some opinion that people manifest in certain areas. So brands with transparency and honesty may try to, of course, they should try to identify, and then they should have a point of view with respect to the topic with which they are discussing, and that will really interest the audience.
Sumitha,
Yeah,
are you saying the age-old saying, either you convince or confuse? Both works.
Yeah.
So, Vaibhav, I believe you also have something to contribute to this.
Yeah. So while I agree to what all Sumitha was saying, and I think that is certainly influencers. This is a kind of a confused species that has emerged suddenly, and then that is the debate between the paid and the organic audience that we are seeing, right? But I think it is a very good time for all of us to take a step back and go back to our basics of what is called as customer lifetime value. And it will be very important for all the brands to start looking at the CLTV. What is the trend of the CLTV? Is it going up? Is it going down? And all those things will have to be relooked at. And really that will help us understand the bridge. And I'm pretty sure Professor Kumar would give us much more insights about this if he was part of this discussion. But I believe that it's time to go back to
but Vaibhav, it is
metric,
really
CLTV.
hard to convince the owners or the clients that you should concentrate on LTV rather than just that instant conversion or instant.
Absolutely.
That is really hard. In real scenario,
Absolutely.
my account managers or my sales team have a hard time to convince them.
Yeah, people don't even worry about long-term 6 months vision. Lifetime is a long time. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that is absolutely correct. Even with our customers, it's very difficult to tell them that what is the value that they get by showing an ad to a viewer on our platform, and how does it. So it's a very debatable situation. But the trends are very important in that sense. That's what I think will be an interesting thing to see.
And Ajay, you would like to add something to this? Is Ajay online? I think there is a problem with his network.
I think is
Yes.
Yes,
I
yes,
missed the
returned.
question, Zubin. Sorry.
No, we were just continuing the discussion on this earned marketing aspect. Would you
Yeah,
like to
paid versus
contribute?
earned, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just some basic stuff, right? Because paid, as in, if you look at social platforms as a whole, what they've done is that they started off free. They are still free. They have built up a huge audience that includes all of us here, right? So they have a huge platform to advertise to. So anything that talks about engagement, right, it is paid for. For example, Facebook's, present algorithm is like you put a post on Facebook or Instagram or any of the networks, it would probably reach 0.01% of the followers. For example, 100,000 followers, it reaches 10 people. And hence, those 10 comments or likes or shares or whatever. If you want to reach any of them beyond that 0.1%, you have to advertise. So that is how cunning the platforms have become. Just, a
Even
couple
if
of months. Yeah.
see, I'd like to add that point specifically because at the end of the day, a true virality is so ambiguous. You don't know
Yeah.
when it clicks.
Yes.
So, as a person who is advising you, okay, put your marketing rupees on a paid versus earned. Uh, the earned is a very it's a big risky thing. You put it
Earn the stuff.
sometimes 100,000 times, 10,000 times, but
Yeah.
you don't know when that will click. Whereas
Yeah.
paid, you know, okay, I'm putting this money, this many
Yeah.
visitors will come into my website. And these
Yeah.
many people, there is a good chance that that conversion is going to happen also. A lot
Yeah.
of times, the viral content may even bring visitors to my website, but there is no conversion happening. So
Yeah.
it's an extremely tricky situation with the whole virality concept. What works in one market may not work. What works in one time may not work the second time.
Hmm.
So, and I don't think so. There is any earned a viral video maker who has become made more than one viral video.
Yeah, there is no secret formula to it. You know?
I think it is better to have more openness and collaboration, especially in this phase, because more of the cultures, categories, or verticalities and genres are constantly mixed, and so that collaboration helps in certain cases. That's how now we are experimenting.
Absolutely. So, just to summarize this topic, I believe a lot of insights have come in during this discussion. I believe some of it is very short term in nature. Some of the activities which, for example, the marketing team getting cut down, or the spent in marketing overall getting reduced, I believe that is short term. Some of them are going to stay. I believe the consumer pattern trends, uh, buying grocery, buying, watching OTT content, that mechanism is going to have a long. It will remain long after the pandemic is gone. So I believe some things have actually worked out, and there is one more category of the whole situation where, the virtual events and the category of that sort, which have not worked right now, but who knows in the future what may happen. So I believe that overall everything has there is a lot of traction which has happened. I believe. Uh, before I end this whole conversation, to all the viewers out there, let me tell, except for me and Sumitha, all the other people have their views as personal views and not that of organization. I have absolutely no problem representing my organization in its views.
Thank you, Vaibhav. That's my name. Thank you, Subin.
I believe Sumitha is also of the same opinion. Is it?
100%. Yes, of course. Doubt about it.
Yeah, but all others, it's strictly personal opinions and not that of the organization. I believe that is the case.
Absolutely.
So absolutely delightful having all of you here. It was a wonderful conversation. I hope the viewers enjoyed as much as we had. It's a big learning. Special thanks to all the viewers, especially Professor Om Kumar. We are delighted to have had this entire discussion. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. It was. I am extremely sorry if I have missed certain comments. Due to the lack of time, we have to cut short this whole conversation. Hopefully, we'll meet up in some other panel discussion, talk about more exciting things, maybe pull each other's legs once in a while. And hopefully, I'll be on the guest panel rather than the moderation panel next time.
We should have another discussion session for just pulling.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you, guys.